Hello, welcome to AntKast by Ant Group. It's a podcast that brings you deep into conversations with global thinkers, innovators, and entrepreneurs on groundbreaking technology and how they're shaping our lives for better or for worse. I'm your host, R.T. Warfield. In this episode, we welcome a very special guest, British prolific author, poet, broadcaster, and dare I say, national treasure, Michael Rosen. He has written over 140 books throughout his life. Notable works include We're Going on a Bear Hunt, No Breathing in Class, Sad Book, and Chocolate Cake. Michael began writing children's literature in 1974. He has won over 30 awards, including being named United Kingdom's Children's Laureate from 2007 to 2009, and winning the Center for Literacy and Primary Education Poetry Award in 2021. Michael is also a professor of children's literature at Goldsmiths, University of London. Michael draws many inspirations from his own childhood and life experiences in his writing, including one of his latest works, Many Different Kinds of Love, a story of life, death, and the NHS, that documents his experience of hospitalization during COVID. Having recovered from COVID, we're very honored to have Michael share his philosophies, inspirations, and life stories with our listeners on AntKast. Welcome to AntKast, Michael.
Thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Now, I'm aware that many listening to this podcast know who you are, but for those who don't, or even those who have heard of you but maybe know little about you, how would you introduce yourself?
Well, along the lines that you just did, I think of myself as a writer, as a broadcaster, a performer as well. I perform quite a lot in schools. I teach at a university as well, Goldsmiths, University of London. I also think of myself as a father, a son, a brother, and a supporter of a football team in London called Arsenal Football Club. So, you know, there's a variety of things there. I'm Jewish in background, so I see myself as Jewish. Probably that's filled in quite a few gaps there. So, yeah, something like that.
It's interesting you said performance artist, because that's when I think of you, that's what I think of. I think of you as being a performance artist first and foremost. What do you think about my impression of you?
Well, that's fine. My son helped create our YouTube channel. He wanted to capture the fact that I do perform my poems. I don't just write them, and that was his idea. And so we started with We're Going on a Bear Hunt, and then we moved into some others, and suddenly we found they were getting very popular. So it is quite nice to see that side of me, as it were, frozen into video format, because up until then it had all been very ephemeral. I wasn't much on TV in Britain, and so it was nice to get them there on our YouTube channel. So that's nice that you found your way to those. Thank you.
So your books are translated into how many languages? Do you know?
I'm not absolutely sure, but I think We're Going on a Bear Hunt has been translated into, well, I think at least 20, possibly more. I haven't actually counted it up. And that book, I have to say, is really an adaptation by me. You know that people who've written for children have always adapted what we might call folk or traditional literature. Mm-hmm. I mean, even the great Brothers Grimm, who we think of as collectors of literature, in actual fact, adapted the stories they were told. The stories they were told were often very, very short, told by friends of the family, people who lived in the little town where they lived, and then they lengthened them and adapted them. And then, you know, if you think of, I don't know, Cinderella, which then indeed they partly borrowed from a French writer. So all these things are borrowed. Well, I did the same with Bear Hunt. I borrowed what was a mixture of an American summer camp song, and in Britain we have the Brownies, who are part of the World Scout movement, mm-hmm. and they do We're Going on a Lion Hunt, and I mixed these up and I changed bits and added bits and changed some words and so on, and that's my version of We're Going on a Bear Hunt. So that one seems to be the most successful, but I don't think it's just down to my words, it's down to the original frame, if you like, of the traditional song, and the incredible artwork by Helen Oxenbury.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I'll have to ask you about the people you partner with later on with the artwork. But what I wanted to ask you next was I believe that book is translated to Chinese, and I'm wondering, do you know much about your Chinese readership and fans?
The only thing I know about my Chinese readership is meeting Chinese students at Goldsmiths, University of London. So we run an MA, that's a master's degree in children's literature, which includes illustration and theory and some creative as well, and so on. So different modules, as we call them. And particularly the illustration department is very popular with Chinese students. So at the beginning of the year, we have an orientation time when the students come in and we tell them about the internet and how the college works. So this year we had about 50 students, and the chair of the department said, and now we have Michael Rosen. And suddenly there was this, hey! And there were about 20 Chinese students, who mostly young women, who started waving. And I kind of waved back politely. And then they came rushing up to me and said, "We know you." And I said, I don't think so. They said, "Yes, in China you're known as Nice Grandad." And I said, "Really?" And I said, "Are you sure?" And they said, "Yes." And they immediately were holding up their phones going, "Say nice Grandad, do nice Grandad." And so it was, yes, it was quite an eye-opener. And then they explained that I had been discovered in China, and that people quite like some of my performances on YouTube. And so
Was that hot food? Was that hot food?
So, hot food,
Hot
that's
food.
right. Yes, where of course, well, I can perform it later for you if you like. I won't do it now. And indeed, and so the nice bit is obviously me saying nice, and then the Grandad bit is my grey hair. And so, yes, apparently I'm Nice Grandad. So I like it. I can't think of a better term than to be known by Chinese people as Nice Grandad. Thank you, China. It's an honour.
That's fantastic. Have you been to China?
No, I haven't. The nearest I've been to China is Singapore. So I'm very sorry, I haven't been there yet. My daughter has. She went on a school exchange, part of, I think, Erasmus. She was there for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So she was there for quite a long time because she was studying Mandarin at school.
Very good choice. Well, I recommend you put on your bucket list. It's an amazing place, and I know you'll get the royal treatment if you come.
Well, what I want is a red carpet and a big banner with Nice Grandad written on it in English and Mandarin, and any other Chinese languages. It could be multiple if you like, but I want the banner out, flags. Hello, Nice Grandad, welcome to China. Yes, that's what anyway, yeah, obvious. No, I'm just kidding. No, please, no, it's fine. I'm not like that at all.
Well, it might happen. Yeah. But having brought that up, the whole meme thing. You're a meme. Do you know what a meme is, right? Internet meme. You do know what that is, right?
I do now. If you'd
Yeah,
asked
yeah,
me maybe a few
yeah.
years ago, no, but I do know now. My son, who is of course acquainted with all that, he's basically a TV, film and video maker, so he explains all this to me, and I do try to keep up. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So just does that? I mean, there are people I know that don't. I've never read your books, never listened to you on the radio. I know you have a radio program and other things, but they know you from your memes. Is that? What do you think about that?
Well, I'm forced to think about it because I go about, in my local area, in my suburb where I live, and I get stopped in the street, and people come up to me and they do the nice thing, or they just go behind me, nice, or they might say, "It's Michael Rosen," and they come running up to me with the phone and say, "Do it, do it, do it," or sometimes they wait till I've walked past, and I'm maybe about 10 yards down the road, and I hear, "Nice." I look round and sure enough, and they've got their cameras, they've got their phones up and they're filming me. Or indeed on a bus. I mean, it happens quite often. And just the other day, I was walking down the road and a cab stopped, a taxi. stopped. And I thought, well, I haven't called a taxi. And the guy leaned out and he said, could you shout out for my son? I said, yeah, hi. No, he said, do the nice thing. So I'm standing in the middle of the road, okay, with people walking past, and I'm going, nice, like that. And he said, thank you. And he was filming, and then he drove off. So anyway, there you go. There's different ways to be famous. I guess if I was, when I was 16 or 18, and I did think maybe at one point I was going to be an actor, and another point I thought I was going to be a doctor. If someone had said, well, no, you're not really going to be either of those things, Michael. What you're going to be is a guy who stands in the street and people come up to you and they go, say nice. And then I go, nice. And they go, yes. I'd have thought, well, that's a strange thing that I'm going to be when I'm, as I am, nearly 76. What a strange destiny is awaiting me. Anyway, there you go. I'm quite happy with it. It's a bit strange sometimes when I'm out, but I can live with it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like most of the people are good-natured about it. It's not getting any abuse, so I think that's okay.
They all are. I haven't met anybody who's been nasty about it. I seem to have given people some pleasure and some humour, and some people. I was just going to the theatre the other night, and two teenagers came up. And they had another bit from TikTok, and they said, do the bit where you look down, where you're not allowed to breathe in class, and you look down and you go, oh, there's Melanie. That's a shame, I used to like Melanie. There's Dave, hard luck, Dave. Do that. And they did it like me, and then I had to do it back at them, and they filmed it, and then we went into the theatre. I thought, well, isn't that peculiar? Anyway, my daughter was standing there going, and the dad who was with them was going, do you mind, to my daughter? And she went, no, I'm used to it. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure she's used to it by now, but that's fantastic. Anyway, I'm sure your publisher probably likes it because it's free publicity, I suppose.
Who knows? Yes, as you say, some people might just know that and maybe not get a book. But anyway, I'm sure, some people have found their way to the books, which is lovely. Yeah.
That's lovely. Yeah. So speaking of your books, your latest book is Many Different Kinds of Love, a story of life, death, and the NHS. And I think that book's only in English right now. Is that correct?
I think so, though I think it will come out in China. I think I heard the other day that it will be coming out in China. I think so, yes.
Okay, well, let's give a little sneak peek to our Chinese audience who may be watching this. So you want to tell us a little bit what the book's about?
So the book, here it is, look, Many Different Kinds of Love, the story of life, death, and the NHS. And for those of you who don't know, NHS stands for National Health Service, our free health service here in Britain, available for everybody. And it's the story of how I got ill with COVID. I got ill, just about 2 years ago, March 2020 with COVID. And it was so bad, I had to be taken into hospital. And I was put into what we call intensive care. And that was that I was put in an induced coma. They basically knocked me out for 40 days. And I was in, what happens then is you're ventilated. That's to say they pump air into you. They put a tube down your throat. You are unconscious. And I was in that state for over 40 days. And in that particular ward, which is called an intensive care ward, for over 47 days, really. And when I came round, I was not in a great state. I was pretty confused. I was what's called deconditioned. I mean, you've heard of conditioning when you go to the gym. Well, this is the complete opposite, because my body was incapacitated and various things. I had what are called microbleeds in my brain, so that's hemorrhages in my brain. I had blood clots in my pulmonary artery. I'd lost some of my toenails. I'd lost the feeling in my toes. I lost the sight in my left eye, lost the hearing in my left ear. So I was a bit of a wreck, really. And they had to teach me how to stand up and how to walk. And I started to piece this together and started writing about it. And so that's what I've done in the book. They're my thoughts and feelings and dreams about what happened, and the sort of memories, the blurred and worried and mixed memories, and the jokes as well of things that happened to me, but also what the nurses and one of the doctors wrote, and my wife telling the rest of the family. So I'm writing, as it were, from the inside out to you, and they're writing from the outside in to me. So you get the 360 degrees thing. And the nurses who wrote, they wrote what's called a patient diary. So every day when I was unconscious, I'll do an imitation of me being unconscious. Right, okay, that was me. They're writing to me. They write letters to me. Dear Michael, oh, you're getting better today, though your blood pressure's been going up and down, has been yo-yoing. Or today we sang you happy birthday. 15 of us got round your bed and we sang you happy birthday. I don't remember any of this, of course, because I was, as I say, unconscious. So these letters are in the book, and they're very moving. I mean, I find them almost overwhelming to read because of the level of care and kindness. They hold my hand and squeeze it in order to make sure I'm sort of in the world. Again, no memory of this at all. They play me, my children and my wife made up a playlist, and they held it up to my ear to sort of keep me in the world, even though they're knocking me out with the drugs, because they know that if they go too far, you don't wake up, or if you do wake up, you're brain damaged. So, doctors did come to my bedside after 43, 44 days, checking me out to see whether I really was able to think and so on. So. And I've had brain scans to check whether whether I've got a brain or not. And it appears as if I have. So that's good news, isn't it?
That's very good news. So tell me, how are you feeling now? How are you doing?
Pretty good. I walk about 30 minutes a day. I aim for 5 times 30 a week, 150 minutes. That's what they say of fast walking. I say fast walking. There was me coming into my office, that's where I am now. Thought I was really pounding along through the park today. And as I was pounding along going, this is pretty quick, to myself, a woman went past me and she looked like she was just strolling. She was just like, went past me. And I thought, well, maybe self-perception is self-deception. Is a little thought that I had for myself. Maybe I'm deceiving myself. But anyway, I was panting along, thinking this is doing my heart some good. I can't really see with this left eye. Actually, as I say that, I can sort of see my hand, and that ear is pretty crummy. I just get a sort of muffled sound in that ear. If I block that ear out, all I can hear is... That's quite a good impression of it, actually. I can do that again. Anyway, there you go. And my toes are numb. I mean, you can live with numb toes. It is possible to live with. I just want to introduce that interesting medical fact to my listeners today. Yes, you can live with numb toes.
Yeah. But the point is you're living, right? So I guess
That's true.
You're not complaining.
Well,
you're not complaining, are you?
I'm not, but you've just better clear that up. You said the point is you're living. I'm now going to ask you a question. How do you know I'm living?
Well, that's true. I don't know. I'm just talking to you through the screen. So
exactly. The various possibilities. This whole thing could be staged, and I could be a puppet, or I could be an apparition, a spectre, a ghost. It could be quite possible.
You're the best
There's
ghost
a special,
I've ever talked to.
Well, thank you. There is a special Jewish name for a ghost, which is a Dybbuk. So I possibly am the Dybbuk of Muswell Hill. That's the part of London I live in. So you don't know whether you're talking to Michael Rosen or the Dybbuk of Muswell Hill.
Yeah, and think about the listeners. Who are they listening to, right?
Exactly. We could be just a whole thing.
A whole thing.
No. Yeah. And maybe this is Ian McKellen, Sir Ian McKellen, pretending to be Michael Rosen.
Oh, he's doing a very good impression. That's great.
Well, he's a great actor.
He's a great actor. Can I just ask you one more question about the book, and that is about the title? Can you help me understand why you picked the title "Many Different Kinds of Love"? What
Well,
does that mean?
the title is there for two reasons. One is because one of the things that when you come out of one of these comas, the doctors explained to me they'd filled me full of mind-changing drugs. Anyway, that's what they said to me, and they said you're going to have hallucinations and dreams. Have you had any of these? And I said, yeah, I keep dreaming of a German farmer who comes up to me with his old 1930s tractor. And he says to me, what we need is to love each other. And I'm going, right? This is my dream, okay? And he says, yes, we have to love each other. Well, that might be because we love our partners, we love our children, we love our families, but we also have to love each other beyond that. And I'm going, right. And I'm thinking, why has he got a 1930s tractor? And why is he in what we call a bib and brace, dungarees thing, denim?
Yeah.
I don't understand why this is going on. And he said, we need many different kinds of love. So he said this to me in my dream, you see, and I kept having this dream as I was coming out of the coma. So I've written about this. And then when we were talking about the title, you know, and some of the book is about how grateful I am to Emma, my wife, my children, and also about these nurses who looked after me like this. There's one poem I've written in there, which is, they treat me as if they're my parents. You know, I'm a parent, and when my kids are ill, you know, we feel their temperature, we give them medication, we sing to them, we hold their hands. And these nurses, they've done just the same to me, but they're not my parents. So at one point we thought, shall we call it They're Not My Parents or something like that? No, that doesn't work. And then we found this line in that dream, many different kinds of love, and realized, well, that's actually what the book is about. So it's quite odd that the dream I had is actually sort of what the book's about.
So it seems to me that a lot of your writing is informed from your everyday life, whether it's lack or loss. You know, like I know you wrote something about losing a child, and I think this makes your writing, in my opinion, like really authentic and quite vivid. So if you were to use 3 words to describe life, what would they be? What were the words to help you use to describe life to you?
There's always a corner. And what I mean by that is that there's always a corner that is up ahead. And then we've got this English expression, I've turned a corner. And that means that you've got past something and you're on to the next bit. And the thing is, there is always a next bit. You get round that corner and you go, yeah, I've turned a corner. So in my case, it was like standing up or learning to walk again. But when you get round that corner, there's another corner ahead. So my phrase is, there's always a corner. There's always a challenge, a thing to try and do. And then if you work away at it, you get round it. And that's great. So I'll use that phrase. It's in fact, I think, there is always a corner. Sorry, it's 5 words, not 3, but I shrunk it to 4. There's always a corner. We just about got away with it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's always a corner.
Yeah. So I guess there's always a corner. You always go around the corner. So I guess there's always change. So the most important thing in life for you has that always changed based on these different big events in your life? Like if I asked you today, what is the most important thing in life to you? Is it different than it was before you had COVID?
I think the most shattering thing in my life was losing my son. I can't escape from that. And that obviously happened to someone else, but I was affected by it. I suppose the thing about COVID is that it happened to me. And so I was affected by it as a total mind-body experience. So in a way, it's sort of up there with losing Eddie, but only in a kind of selfish way. The thing about losing Eddie was that it's a sort of a whole chunk of my life, but my life out there taken away from me, whereas the COVID was sort of all in here. It feels very different. But yeah, losing Eddie was the most devastating and changing thing in my life. Yeah.
Right. So I guess my question is, what is the most important thing in your life today? Like, what is that? And is it different than it was before these 2 big events?
Yeah. Well, in personal terms, it's my family who I live with and love and so on. Or I don't live with all of them. Some of them are grown up and having their children and so on. And then in professional terms, I keep the two things separately. I guess it is writing. It's just such a great, lovely place for me to be in. I mean, I sometimes think of writing as like you go into a room, and it's a room full of possibility that you can make things and create things, but also you find things, because there's a way you can think of writing as a kind of investigation. So it's a bit difficult to describe, but if you think of a detective as being someone who's investigating, so an inspector picks up something and says, this is made of plastic and it's red, and it could have been something that tied up this thing over here. Yes, and it's got fingerprints on it. Well, a writer, in a way, does something quite similar. They don't necessarily have the object. They say, I've written about this thing, and now I'm going to investigate it, and it's red, and it's got a fingerprint on it. And someone picks it up and stretches it, and you're imagining it, but it feels like, as you're writing it, that you're investigating it just the way a detective does with real objects. So when you go into the writing room of your head, you're creating these objects and people and relationships and investigating them. So in a way, it's a bit like a detective does with real objects, but you're doing it all up in your head.
So, the book you wrote about Eddie, and then also the book about the COVID, what happened to you, I feel like it's a gift to us, the readers, but also I feel like you do, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like you do this for yourself. It's like it's a form of catharsis. That's how I read it. How does it work for you?
Yes, I'd absolutely second that, absolutely agree with that. Both books, the sad book that was about Eddie. Also, I did a book of poems for adults that was about losing Eddie, called Carrying the Elephant. And then this book, Many Different Kinds of Love. They all started out with me trying to make sense of what happened. Again, I'll use that investigate word.
Right.
Investigate, what do I feel? What do I see? What do I hear? What do I remember? What do I imagine? So, you think see, hear, you could add in smell, touch and taste, your other senses, remember and imagine. These are the sort of basis of most writing. And so by doing that, it was a chance to make sense of it for me, because, the idea of losing a child is nonsensical. It's crazy. It's impossible. It's beyond belief. So, but it happened. So you must try and understand it. So what did he die of? It was called meningitis. Well, what's meningitis? Look it up. Find out about it. Imagine it. There's this bacterium and it's in your throat and it crosses the membrane, and suddenly I'm writing this down, meningitis, bacterium, and then I'm thinking, what does it do then? It damages the tissues inside. So I'm sort of writing about it in a kind of medical, emotional way. So I'm investigating the medicine of it and investigating my feelings about it. I've got to put this down on paper, write about it. So that was with Eddie. And then the same similar thing with the COVID. What is COVID? What is it? Sort of, and then I saw a picture of it, of the virus, and I thought it looked like a little hedgehog. So I called it, a nasty little hedgehog. Well, it isn't a hedgehog, but I called it that. So, that's a metaphor, if you like. And so, if you like, that's how I make sense of these things, and making sense of them makes me feel better. You use the word catharsis. Catharsis is this thing that was first described by Aristotle, and talking about the feelings we have as we watch a great tragedy, like a Shakespeare play or a great Greek tragedy of some sort, that is a tragedy, and then you feel the disaster of it, but in some way or another feel better because you get through the disaster. So to write, we say, is cathartic. you feel better because you get through it by describing it.
So writing children's literature or children's poetry versus, like your recent book, I guess is not so much a children's book, right? So is there a different approach? Is there a different way of writing? Like what is there, or is there no difference at all between doing the two things?
Between writing for children and writing for adults, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. When you write for children, each of us who does that, we have different ways of doing it. My way is that I focus on the kind of child I was and the kinds of things I liked or I liked reading. So it's two slightly different things there. What did I like reading? What did I like doing? What was I interested in? What was I afraid of? What feelings did I have as a child? And I kind of focus on that. Then I've had children, so I quite often think about what they've enjoyed and the youngest is 17 now, so not really what you'd call a child, but I've got very strong memories of what they liked and what they liked me to read to them. And then because I visit schools and get letters from children and so on, and also I still read some children's books, then I'm thinking, if you like, I can put myself into a kind of mindset, which is a mixture of the child I was, the kind of children my children were, the kind of children I meet. And so I put myself into this sort of child reading mode, and then I'm writing for that child or children. Yeah? If you're writing for an adult, I think, in my case, it's not quite like that, in a sense that it just feels like writing. You're not getting into a special mindset. I'm just okay. So when it's like Many Different Kinds of Love, then the mindset I got into is writing a particular kind of style of poetry, which actually Chinese people will be interested in, is in its own way partly based on ancient Chinese poetry. So some of the Chinese people watching this may know the poets Li Po and Du Fu. Apologies if I've pronounced them wrong. They're poets who wrote what we call in the West more like imagist poetry, where you don't express feelings through feelings words, you express feelings through the image. So if an ancient Chinese poet wrote about a leaf falling off a tree and then falling into a river, and then the leaf going off down the river, you don't say necessarily how sad I feel to see that. You let the reader feel that that's about the passing of time or the changing of the landscape and getting older or things like that. You let the feelings be in the reader while you describe the leaf falling from the tree onto the water. Now that style of writing we call in the West either imagist or minimalist, modernist, and it's been really, we've borrowed from ancient Chinese poetry by poets like Li Po and Du Fu, and we've had various poets in the West who've written like that, and I use that when I'm writing for adults. I use that to try and inform me, particularly of one style of writing that I write with.
So I'm conscious of time, but before we go, just a couple things. I actually have some questions from your Chinese publisher. I think Beijing Cheerfly Century, that's the name of your publisher. They got some couple questions collected from your readers in China. And if it's all right, I'd like to ask you if that's okay. So the first one says, we like your books very much, which is good, right? And the rhymes in your writing read as if the book comes with sound effects. Young readers from China love the book, We Are Going on a Bear Hunt. Could you share with us your inspiration behind the creation of this book?
So the first time I saw a bear hunt being acted out, it did have sounds. It went, we're going on a bear hunt, we're going to catch a big one. What a beautiful day. We're not well, you know how it goes. Anyway, and then it gets to the river, doesn't it? All right, so it gets to the grass and the mud. Well, each of those, they were done with sounds, you see. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Uh-oh, grass. Long wavy grass. We can't go over it, we can't go under it. Oh no, we got to go through it. And then when I saw it, it was whew, 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 whew. And when it was the water, it was splosh, splosh, pshoo, pshoo. And when it was the mud, it was well, when I came to write the book, I realised you can't really write. So I came up with squelch, squirch, squelch, squirch in English. And when it was the grass, it was swishy, swashy, swishy, swashy. So I had to make up sounds. And when I made up the snow scene, okay, so I had to write those down as words. So that was how the sound effects went into words. And then I know some of the publishers have done the book with little buttons that you press and it makes the noises. So when you press the grass, it goes. And when it goes the mud, see? So there we are. So you can, there's an English version of the book, I don't know whether it's out in China like that, where you can press buttons down the side of the page to get the noises. So it's a multimedia book. Got to compete with YouTube.
Wow. Yeah, you do. Your second question from your publisher, from a reader, is a fan, is we know that your sad book was written based on your personal experience. In China, there are some parents who might think that we shouldn't discuss the topic of death with children at such an early stage of their lives. What are your thoughts on this?
Leave it to the parents. If a parent doesn't want to show that book to their children, then don't. Absolutely. I mean, you write a book, you don't know where it'll go. There's no instruction. It's not a law from the government or anything. It says you must read this to your 5-year-old. So if you see the book and think, I don't want to talk about death with my kids, don't do it. If you do, or if a tragedy has happened in your family and you want a book to help you talk about it, then that might be something. Or you might say, well, I'll buy it for me as an adult. A book is a very democratic instrument. You can do what you want with it. So it doesn't oblige anybody to read it if they don't want to. So it's entirely up to you.
Well, I would recommend that they do. I think it's a great way to introduce the topic to children. Wonderful, wonderful book. Thank you for doing that for everybody. And one last thing. So World Book and Copyright Day is coming, I think, on the 23rd of this month. And as an author yourself, have you ever experienced any problems in copyright protection?
Some people have done parodies of We're Going on a Bear Hunt. You can hear the word bear is quite good fun to play with, so you've turned that into bar, and you know what a bar is, or a bar, if you pronounce it another way. So somebody did a book where the family are going looking for a different bar, different public house to go drinking in. We're going on a bar hunt. And the publishers looked at it and wondered whether was someone trying to make a profit out of a book. And it all turns on whether the new one borrows words that are only written by me. And it did a bit, but, you know, how much money did they make? Probably very little. In the end, they decided, oh, it doesn't matter. But if, let's say, they'd made millions and millions and had borrowed lots of words from me, then that would have been an issue. Another thing cropped up where I wrote a book about a kid who wakes up in a museum and everything comes to life in the museum. Now, a guy had bought film rights for that, and he said he was going to Hollywood and trying to sell it. And then a few years went by, and then suddenly a movie came out called A Night in the Museum. And my kids went to see it before I did. They came back and said, Dad, they've stolen your book. And I said, really? So I went to see the film, and they said, well, maybe he is a bit, maybe not. Talked about whether the copyright was stolen. My agent immediately said, are there any lines of dialogue in the movie that are like in your book? I said, there's one moment where the guy says to the other guy, I'm not real. He explains to him, I'm not real. I said, I've got that moment. He said, is that all? And I said, yeah. I said, everything else, it's just, he said, well, you can't copyright ideas, you can only copyright dialogue.
Oh.
And I said, right. Yeah. He said, you could have a fantastic idea of, I don't know, a goblin jumping out of an aeroplane, and then the goblin turns into a dragon, and the dragon flies all around the world, and you think, wow. And then you write that story, and then someone writes a story exactly the same, but they don't have the same dialogue, and they go, well, sorry, you can't copyright that. You can't copyright ideas. You can only copyright dialogue and detail. Really, if you said it was a green dragon that breathed blue fire, and then he's in the other story, it's a green dragon. But if they changed the colours and said it was a red dragon that did purple fire, you'd lose it. So anyway, so the movie came out, and my agent said, no, you can't. You've got no evidence that they stole your idea. It could be they just had this very similar idea themselves. End of. So there we are. There's 2 examples.
Oh, I see. So if for example, if I wanted to become an author and want to protect my copyright, besides getting an agent to help defend it, do you have any other advice?
Well, the simplest thing to do if you want to protect your copyright is you do a little circle and you write C in it. And underneath that, you put the date next to it. And underneath that, you write all rights reserved.
I see.
Okay? Yeah. And then that means no one can take it and publish it without coming back to you. Mm-hmm. It's a good idea for you to put somewhere you can be found as well, either your email or your agent or the publisher or whatever. Or if you've published it yourself, then how they can get in touch with you. But the moment you put C and put a circle around it and the date next to it, then that is copyright. Yeah?
I see.
You can write copyright on it and all rights reserved, and that's a way of doing it.
Right. But I guess you also need a way of kind of policing and protecting it. So like here at Ant Group, with our blockchain and AI technologies, we have built a digital copyright services platform, which can help original creators verify and protect their copyright. So like when a creator uploads his or her work onto the platform, it will generate a unique digital copyright certification.
Well,
go ahead.
It's very difficult. I was just surfing the other day, and I found a reading of one of my books on YouTube.
Okay.
And I thought, I don't remember licensing that. That means giving it out for someone else to do. So I wrote to the publisher, and they came back to me straight away and said, we licensed it to someone else, but this person who's put it up, they don't have a license, so we're going to get on to them and get them to take it down. So there we are. But it's very difficult. I mean, because, obviously, let's say you wanted to copyright this interview because you've done this interview. Well, somebody could just clip it and bung it up for themselves. Mm-hmm. And if they tried to make money out of it, they could. They could, put ads on it. They could monetize it. Mm-hmm. If they think an interview with Michael Rosen is going to make them lots of money. Anyway, I'd be pleased to know. You would just have to rely on you finding it, because you're not going to find it otherwise.
Yeah, well, so this is what this new technology that we're trying to develop is. It's helping assist creators to monitor and identify potential copyright infringement. So it's when they upload their unique creative works onto the platform. So these are ways we're trying. So it's only available in China right now, but maybe one day it'll expand further, and other people in other languages outside China can actually upload some of their stuff onto the platform in order to monitor it. Anyway, Michael, I know I said earlier that you're a national treasure, but I actually think you're more of a global treasure. I think you're an amazing person on many, many levels. I love your work. I think you're very, very insightful, and I've learned so much from you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. It's been such a pleasure.
Well, thanks very much for having me. And I'll finish by saying, we sit down to eat, and the potato's a bit hot. So I only put a little bit on my fork and I blow till it's cool, just cool, into the mouth. Nice. And there's my brother, he's doing the same. Till it's cool, just cool, into the mouth. Nice. And there's my mum, she's doing the same. Till it's cool, just cool, into the mouth. Nice. But my dad, My dad, what does he do? He stuffs a great big chunk of potato into his mouth, and that really does it. His eyes pop out, he blows, he puffs, he yells, he bobs his head up and down. He even spits bits of potato onto the plate. Sorry about this. And he turns to us and he says, "Watch out, everybody, the potato's really hot." Thanks for having me, folks.
That was British author, poet, broadcaster, educator, national treasure, and all-around good guy, Michael Rosen. That's it for this episode of AntKast. To make sure not to miss a single episode, please subscribe on iTunes or Spotify. I'm RT Warfield, coming to you from London. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.